everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. Today I'm painting the Poison Dragon from Arcadia Quest. This was requested by Stephen from Patreon. He's one of the subscribers, one of my patrons, and he chose this model for me to paint. It's quite challenging. It's by far the biggest model I've ever painted, so let's see how I do. First of all, Stephen wasn't the only person excited about this. And after that interruption, we'll take the model outside to prime, and we'll first let it battle a wasp that landed on it within seconds of it getting there. And as you can see, the dragon's pretty fierce and scares that away quickly. So I'm going to be using the colour primer Goblin Green by the Army Painter. Spent some of the subscription money Stephen kindly donated, which covered the cost of this spray. So I thought I'd save us some time and go straight into giving the base coat with this colour primer. As you can see it here, I'm starting with the primer to the side of the model and first pressing down the fire, as you can see there, and then moving from side to side, applying a light even coat throughout the whole of the model and doing it sort of above as well, just trying to get that spray down on the top. Hopefully you can see that there. Once I'm finished with the spray, I turn it upside down and spray it until the colour stops coming out and it just runs clear. Hopefully you could just see there, and that stops the nozzle drying up, just in case nobody's used to that sort of process. So there's the model completely primed, so you can see slightly a different green to the original green. I'm going to remove the wings as I paint this, just to make the sort of process a little bit easier. Paint the wings separately to the rest of the model. I'm going to be using my largest brush. This is the Monster Brush by Army Painter. I'm going to be using the Plague shader, again by the Army Painter. This is from the Black Plague set. I'm going to be applying this to the whole of the model. I'm covering the whole model in this shader, and as you can see, it's going to take quite a long time, just applying that shader in all of the crevices there. And I'm going to carry on doing this, and it's probably going to take me about forever, I would say, as you can see here, unfortunately. Luckily, Quickdraw Supplies came to my rescue, and they really kindly sent me a new much bigger brush, much bigger than anything I've got. This is by Pro Arty. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, and there you can see the size comparison difference in there, and hopefully that's going to make this process a lot faster. I don't think it needed to be quite this big, but the model is by far the biggest I've painted, and I don't think you can lose having a massive brush. And a brush this easy to use, it does allow you to cheat a little bit and outsource some of the work.
I didn't care for you.
Little cheat there. Once I've done the main model, I will be picking up the wings as I demonstrated. I removed those earlier just to make this a little bit easier, and I'll be doing the exact same process all over the wings, applying a nice amount of this shader, making sure it gets in all of those cracks and crevices. Then I'm just going to quickly show you how that looks, which is going to be quite difficult to tell the difference unless you flick between the original part of the video and this part. You'll be able to see that it's now, well, it's darker overall, and all those cracks are just that little bit darker. It's giving that sort of shadow effect on the model's skin. So again, Quickdraw Supplies to the rescue here sent me a few new brushes to try out, and this is a bunch more flat brushes. These are the Clear Choice, quite a cheap value pack here, but it does just give me a lot of, well, flat brushes really to sort of try and apply a dry brush effect to this model with a much bigger brush than I'm used to. So I'm going to be taking Mouldy Clothes here. I'm going to be dry brushing this on, so I'm just showing you there that I'm scraping off 99% of the paint that I've just applied to the brush. So hopefully you can see that I'm just wiping that off, and then I'm very lightly sort of dragging and scraping this flat brush across the lumps on the dragon's sort of face. I'm going to do this throughout the model, but I'm starting its face so you can get a nice clear look of that, and hopefully you can see it's just lightening up his face a little bit. I'm going to do this several times, sort of 2 to 3 times across the whole model, just applying a tiny bit of paint, just upgraded to a larger brush now I'm away from his face, and just hopefully you can just see here very quickly lightly scraping this paint across all of it until I've caught all the bumps. So hopefully you could see that. Once I've done that, I'm going to switch down to another Pro Art brush supplied by Quickdraw Supplies, and I'm going to be applying the Mouldy paint directly now, just to increase the intensity, I guess, of that colour on all of the raised areas, so all of those sorts of like goosebumps, pimples, I don't know, the raised parts of all of his skin, all of these lumps and bumps, all of the edges of his skin as well. And this is just to complement that dry brushing. The dry brushing sort of lightened up the whole model. Primarily I'm going for the raised parts, but it is catching some of the lower parts as well. It's just lightening it up, like overall, I'd say. And then this bit's just to brighten up all of the raised bits the most, and you can see that quite easily on the wings here while I'm doing them. I'm taking all of these raised spots that he's got on the wings, which are more just towards this top part here, and hopefully you can see I'm just painting all of those raised bits so it's nice and bright again, nice. Back to this, this is a 99-100% match to the primer that I used at the beginning, so I'm really just bringing that colour back out that I originally sprayed it. So once that's done, I'm going to take Mouldy Clothes and Moon Yellow. Moon Yellow is by Vallejo and the Mouldy Clothes is by the Army Painter still. I'm going to mix that 50-50, so I'm making quite a bright yellowy green, and then I'm going to using again, this is a similar brush to the Regiment brush, but it's by Pro Art, and I'm just applying that to all of the centres of all these raised bits. And that's giving them a nice lumpy bumpy look and feel there, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's a nice look as though the light's hitting all of these raised parts. And then once I've done that, I'm going to do a third and final highlight, and that's taking the Mouldy Clothes, only 25% and 75% of that Moon Yellow, and mixing those two together. And this is for the very, very edges, basically of the hair on his head there, as you saw. I'm going to use Vallejo's SunYellow, and that's to paint in his two massive eyes, and that'll take a couple of coats off camera. And Zombie Skin by the Army Painter. This is this is like the bone colour. It's a yellowy white, and I'm going to be painting on all of the bone really. So that's his claws, the horn at the end of his nose, the horn in the centre of his head. He's got some spikes on the back, on his elbows, all over on his wings. He's got one on each wing. That's easy to miss. So I'll paint all of those on. And then I'm going to shade those using the zombie shader. That's the brown shader, but the lighter of the browns. There's also a deep shader. So I'm going to be just applying this using one of those flat brushes and just getting a generous coat over all of those areas that I've just painted in as bone. Trying to mainly get it to settle in the sort of the skinny area where it's coming out of his skin, and that's to sort of blend it coming out of his skin, I guess. That's trying to make it more realistic rather than just a white blob sitting on top of a green blob. So if you darken that bit up, it'll darken the green, it'll darken the white, and it'll be quite hard to see where the two begin and end, and it'll make it look quite realistic as though it is protruding from his skin. So there's quite a lot of those again, so make sure you catch them all, give them all a nice generous coat. So we're going to be highlighting that up, and again using the dry brush technique. I'm just showing you there. Put some paint on the brush and then scrape most of it off until I can't really see the colour coming off anymore. And then I'm going to be scraping that along all of these the bone areas that we've just painted. And I'm trying to get the paint to sit on all of the edges primarily there. So once I've lightened up the bone there, so hopefully you can see that. It's still quite dark. I've just caught the edges as best I can. I just wanted to show what we've done so far. So I still wasn't completely happy with that, so I'm now going to be taking my Regiment brush, or the equivalent of the Regiment brush by Pro Art, and I'm going to be painting in some of this zombie skin back in onto the brightest area. So that's the end of all of his teeth. I'm going to paint the end of his tusk and sort of blend that down along all of those edges of all of these bones, the same as that horn in the middle of his head there, and sort of try and just blend that naturally by hand down. So hopefully you can see that I'm painting the tips of all of these spikes as well as the edges. They sort of all got kind of four edges. Some of them are a bit more cylindrical than others. His claws are the same. Get a nice edge down there and sort of blend it in as best I can by hand. So hopefully you can see that that's looking quite realistic, looking 3D now. Quite getting happy with it. We're not finished yet, so bear with me. We'll carry on. But I just wanted to take a minute just to show you how it's looking so far. Next, we're going to be using Brainmatter Beige. This is just slightly off white by the Army Painter, and this is just to highlight up the very, very edges of all of these bone areas now. So hopefully you can see I'm just applying a tiny amount of this paint to the very tips of all of his bones, claws, tusks, etc. We're going to be on to Vallejo's Dwarf Skin. This is a sort of orangey flesh tone, and that's just to paint in his tongue. So eventually I decided I wasn't happy enough with the claws, so I mixed up a sort of wash of glaze, and that's using Vallejo's Glaze Medium, about 90% of that and 10% of that Brainmatter Beige that was the highlight colour. Mix those together, it creates a very watery glaze. So this is going to sit on top of the colour, so it's going to make it look quite enamel-like, sort of like tooth and claw. And then it's just going to blend the colours a bit more naturally together. So that was Moon Yellow just to highlight up the eyes. I just painted around the middle, just get the centre where the light would be hitting. We're going to move on to Jumpsuit Shader by the Army Painter, and that's to just shade in his tongue, just apply a little coat of that. Last, we're going to use Dead Black, and that's just to dot in two pupils on his eyes. And that's the final part of the model. Put the wings back on, And there you go, you can see the completely finished model. What do you guys think? This is the first large model by far. Normally I'm painting Zombicide models, so they're much smaller. So this is my biggest model I've ever painted. I'm pretty happy with how I did. What do you guys think? What do you guys think to the new way I'm showing the paints? Is that more helpful than normal? It certainly speeds up the video a little bit. And if you guys haven't checked out my Patreon, do please click that. That's in the description below, and it's starting to grow. We're getting quite the little community with some behind the scene footage and some exclusives, so come and check that out. Thank you all very much for watching.